Hello and welcome to another Wards Editorial Roundtable. We are talking about the Wards 10 Best Engines and Propulsion Systems list for this year. You may have tuned in already to hear us talking about the winners, and now we're going to talk about the rest of the field. Overall, we had 26 powertrains that we evaluated. We only evaluate the all-new engines, clean sheet engines, significantly improved from the prior year, or a carryover engine that was a winner the prior year. So the previous winners up against everything that's new as of this year. So that's how we get to 26 powertrains. We've had as many as 40 in certain years. So I would consider this year to be not the most active in terms of engine development and hybrid development from the automakers. But I'm sure next year we're going to see a lot more because we're aware of what kind of the product plan, and we're going to see, I'm pretty sure, more than 26 next year. I have with me here three of the editors from Wards and myself. There are 8 of us who are judges, who are picking the winners each year as we drive the vehicles in Metro Detroit in the months of October and November. So, Drew Winter, James Amond, and Bob Gritzinger. So let's kick off the discussion. I can just kind of lay some ground rules here. We have a price cap of $65,000, and as I said, we only test the new powertrains. This year, among our field, we had 4 V8s, we had 6 six-cylinder engines, we had 13 4-cylinder engines, we had 13 turbocharged engines. And we had 2 hybrids, we had 2 battery electrics, we had 1 fuel cell electric. We had 4 diesels, which is a lot, and we had 4 returning winners on this year's list. So let's open it up to the field. This is what we call the crying in our beer portion of the show, because it's only 10 spots, and there are certain engines that people really want to get on. So Bob, why don't you?
I just have to cry for the Bullet.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we absolutely love the 2.3 high performance inline, the 4-cylinder. The Bullet would have been a return winner. To me, the Bullet should have been a return winner. Having driven a lot of different Mustangs over the past couple of years as they rolled out all these different iterations.
GT500.
The GT500.
GT350.
I mean, the bottom line is, as I wrote in my notes, if you can't shell out for the Shelby GT500, bite the bullet and get this car, and you will not look back.
Okay, so it should be said that we were close this year to having 2 Mustangs on the list, because there was a groundswell of support for both the Bullet and the 2.3 Mustang, but we like to share the love. We want to have a diverse list out there. So
well, and this is, I mean, to me, the V8 is just the epitome of the engine that sells the car. I mean, that just, you get in it, you start it up.
It's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, it just really is there. You don't need a radio, you don't need anything. You just listen to that engine, and it's just, baby boomer heaven in that thing. But so I mean, I think we just had to, kind of realize that there's a new generation of buyers and everything else coming up, and it did win last year, so we did fully recognize
the Bullet
it there.
Yeah. Yep,
so
yep.
but wow, it's just and the sound is just so good on that engine, despite the performance, which is pretty.
As I say, okay, boomer. There's fantastic engine, right? Yeah. But there's only 10 spots on the list,
right.
And I'm not trying to discount the technology that's in the 5-liter, but there was a lot of great technology that was thrown at us this year that, there's only 10 spots.
And the 2.3 really does carry the Mustang the next step forward. Yes. We've been waiting for them to deliver that version of the Mustang. They did, and it delivers.
And don't forget that 54% of the Mustangs that sell today have a 4-cylinder engine, because this high-performance version comes along after they were doing a lower output 2.3-liter EcoBoost. So this is just a high-output version that is going to surely raise that 4-cylinder take rate even higher. So, Drew, let's go to let's go from one extreme to the other. We also had the Hyundai Nexo.
Yes.
The fuel cell vehicle made our list last year. Hyundai's had a couple of fuel cell vehicles on our list over the years. And what happened this year?
Well, I mean, it's an amazing vehicle, just brilliant execution on this. This is an electric vehicle where you can fill up and get 400 miles of range, and then fill it up again in 5 minutes, and just like a regular car, and it's smooth and quiet, great.
As long as you can find the hydrogen.
That's the issue.
Wow.
And so I think our feeling has been, we always, when they come out with a new version, we have to recognize it, because they're always like a big leap in terms of range and power and everything. So great execution, they have to be recognized, but there's still the fact that there is not much of an infrastructure. Volumes on these vehicles of all fuel cell vehicles is very low throughout the world, though more are coming. So I mean, I think we want to let people know, we want to recognize them, but maybe once is enough.
Yeah, it is disappointing that the U.S. is lagging other parts of the world in terms of building the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And of course, the U.S. has a unique geography where the place where it's most desired is out in California, which there are a lot of charging, a lot of fueling stations going in Southern California, which is great. But until we have more of them, at least when we have a couple in Michigan would be nice. So we could at least go fuel
I mean,
it up.
it's a great option if you work at one of the U.S. national labs, right?
Yeah, right.
That's pretty much what it boils down to.
Yeah.
In terms of performance, very smooth, very slick. And I did get a chance to drive it on the Hyundai High-Speed Oval out in California during the recent LA Auto Show. And top speed is 111 miles per hour. That's what it's rated at. Drove it easily to 109 without really running out of breath. So the power is there all the way up. I think I could have made 111. I think there was a headwind.
Yeah. Well, since we're talking Hyundai, let's carry that conversation a bit further. Out of all of the nominees this year, Hyundai had more nominees in the competition than any. They had 6. And that included the 3 internal combustion engines that were clean sheet designs. That was in the 1.6 liter Accent, and also the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated in the Sonata. Both those engines did not make the list. The 1.6 turbo in the Sonata did make the list, but that Accent, we're pushing 40 miles per gallon in that thing, and it was very capable. But just really impressed that Hyundai is, this is an all-new family of engines. They call it their third generation clean sheet engine family. They're calling it Smart Stream, externally in terms of their marketing materials. There's going to be more of these engines that are going to come out. We do know that this continuously variable valve duration system that appears first on the 1.6 turbo in the Hyundai, that engine is also going to go in a Kia product. So that's encouraging. And then beyond that, Hyundai is also, of course, the Kona EV, the battery electric, made it, and then also the Nexo, the fuel cell. So they're playing in all these spaces, and that's what every automaker has to do these days, is got to parse out what resources you have. You can't just go all electric, or you can't go all internal combustion. For the time being, you need to be able to play in both spaces. The other Hyundai that we didn't mention was the Veloster. I know Bob was
Veloster, and to be clear,
with 2 liter turbo, a little rally car,
275 horse, I think. The car is just a joy to drive.
Very lightweight.
And anybody who's looking for that pocket rocket, if you don't want to buy a 2.3 Mustang, here's your other option.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine or hard to think of a company that is investing more at every aspect of propulsion now, because they go everything from hydrogen-powered big trucks to pocket rockets like the Veloster and everything in between, and they've got these twin-turbo V6s that they have in some of their luxury cars and whatnot. They're doing an awful lot, investing an awful lot in everything.
It's probably happening at all the automakers that we write about, but right now this is what we see in the cycle. These are they've got 6 of them out that are fresh, and we know we're going to see other automakers, bringing fresh content next year in terms of powertrains. There's going to be a hybrid F-150. Hopefully, we'll get that in the competition next year.
Well, I just add on the 2.5. I thought the 2.5 was a perfectly good engine. I think it's handicapped by the fact that it's so transparent in its operation.
So this is the 2.5 and the Hyundai Sonata, sort of the base engine.
Yeah, the naturally aspirated four-cylinder. It's just it's so transparent in its operation that it doesn't leave you with a great impression, which in the competition kind of hurts it.
Yeah.
But I think for the everyday driver, that's a great engine.
And it also didn't have the groundbreaking technology of the continuously variable valve duration system either. So let's see the Jeep Renegade. That was one that didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
Renegade, of course, is a compact CUV with this 1.3 liter turbocharged four-cylinder with the multi-air single overhead cam, very interesting valve actuation system. But Drew, you like that one?
Well, yeah. God, it wasn't that long ago. 1.3 is such a tiny engine. We would always associate those with just these tiny little cars and everything. And now we've got the Renegade, which is it's compact, but it's not a necessarily really small vehicle, and it's very off-road worthy. Where you could. So there's lots of power and torque out of that, and I think in the fuel economy is not fantastic, but I don't know any type of vehicle that that kind of package. I don't know that gets better fuel economy, and certainly the performance. Just a great application of this very small engine. And great performance from it, and I think I was very impressed the way it was used and the way it performed.
Yep. So let's move on. One that I want to cry about is the BMW X2. This is the X2 M35i, which is a mouthful, the 2-liter turbo four-cylinder. Now, we tested the X2 last year with a much lower output version of this engine, and this year it comes to us with 301 horsepower, which is a big jump over last year. And this engine is also available in the Mini Cooper, the John Cooper Works, and I've driven it, and it's a whole lot of fun. I know some of the judges thought that it sounded too crude. It sounded, it didn't sound
undignified.
It didn't sound like some muscle car, like a wannabe muscle car. Well, it was a muscle car, because that thing really, you could drive the heck out of that thing. And I had all sorts of fun driving the X2, this particular model. Anybody else want to?
Well, I think it is startling when you get into it and you get your foot into it and you hear all that popping, and you're not used to that in a BMW, right? You're used to BMWs, having an emotional connection to the sound that's coming out of there, but you got to be ready for that. And boy, when you do step into that thing, man, you are off like a rocket.
Yeah. So to me, the whole experience seemed very more Mini-like. I think for me that all the NVH and the exhaust note and everything were more appropriate for like a Mini, for a high-powered Mini Cooper.
Yep.
So, but to each its own. It's still a lot of power and a lot of fun.
All right, so we're into the lightning round at this point. Just a couple things that we can tie up with. We finally drove the Mazda diesel. I've talked for years about how Mazda was going to bring us this 2.2 liter turbo diesel four-cylinder, and finally it's here in the CX-5 diesel. And so that was a four-cylinder diesel. We also had the six-cylinder diesels in the full-size trucks. To be brutally honest, I didn't think the four-cylinder really stood a chance. NVH was very disappointing. And the observed fuel economy, which is, if you're going to spend the extra money for a diesel engine, you'd expect you're going to save some money on fuel. And when the gas engine is as good or perhaps even better, in the CX-5, you wonder what's the business case here.
And their gas engines are so good. We've put them on the list. We've recognized them. This is a bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah, it was. I had very high hopes.
I did too.
For this engine.
I did
and
too.
And the NVH and just the performance was not there.
So this, I mean, if I could say that maybe this is an example of if you have this engine ready, several years earlier, and I understand there was Dieselgate, and I understand there was EPA certification lag and all sorts of issues, but boy, they kind of missed the opportunity. If they brought this engine before Dieselgate, it probably would have really,
Well, and you
really
wonder,
impressed us.
you have to wonder if the tighter attention to emissions affects an engine like this and its power. Volkswagen got the benefit and Audi got the benefit of being out there with these, punchy turbo diesel engines, and lo and behold, now we know why.
Yeah.
Perhaps Mazda would have had a punchy diesel engine if they had come out with it before Dieselgate.
Yeah, the game gets a little harder when you got to play by the rules.
Right.
Well,
yeah,
there
and it may be affecting these vehicles.
Their
Don't hate the player,
intention-
hate the game.
Right.
Their intention early on was, Mazda's was to put the diesel in the U.S. without SCR, without urea injection to deal with NOx emissions.
Very expensive.
I would add, just as it relates to another diesel, the Ram EcoDiesel, which we've awarded in the past, and this time around was outshined by the Duramax, and I wonder if that's also seeing that effect of meeting those tighter emissions, making sure that you meet them, and how that affects the performance of the engine.
Yeah, no,
It has to.
it's a valid question.
Yeah.
A couple others that we tested, the Nissan Titan has been refreshed, and the engine, the 5.6 liter V8, has some modifications, some improvements to it. We just drove it. In fact, we're still driving it, and it's not bad. It's not bad, but I don't see it raising the bar up against any of the other full-size trucks in the market.
Yeah.
Punchy. It's a little coarse.
Yeah.
I
I found observing.
Well, you line that up against. Now I realize the 6.2's got a lot of displacement on this thing compared to the Titan, but you match it up against the Silverado or even the offerings from Ford. It just doesn't pass muster quite as much. I mean,
Well, and plus the fuel economy. For me, the real deal breaker was, seeing 14, 15 miles per gallon, and I'm like, wow, that is not competitive.
it sounds great.
There's not a lot of high technology going on here.
Yeah.
So one that I think will get some high technology down the road and may make the cut then is that Lincoln Corsair. That 2-liter turbo, if we're talking lightning round here, seems, that was a smooth, quiet application, but maybe not quite up to what you expect in a Lincoln, because this is really a gussied up escape.
Yeah.
I think that engine really may address the customer for the Corsair. I'm making some assumptions on my part, but it's very smooth. The turbo doesn't, you don't rip into it, and it's just really manageable, easy to drive, small crossover.
Yeah, and if you compare it to something like the GLC with the 4-cylinder, there's, it's comparative. I mean, I think what sells those vehicles and what Lincoln really is selling is the interior and the features and things like that, which I think is probably the smart way to go.
I did like the Corsair, and yeah, you're right. A lot of those engines in that segment are going to come around 245 to 255, 260 horsepower, which for most buyers, that's pretty much what they want. That's all they want. But now there's going to be a hybrid.
The Grand Touring that they showed at the Los Angeles Auto Show will be a plug-in hybrid, and the first application for Ford of a totally independent electrified e-axle. And so you'll get that around-town electric range, electrified all-wheel drive, all in this really nice luxury package.
And the Lincoln Corsair is related to the Ford Escape, correct? And the Escape has hybrid that you've driven that you really enjoy?
Well, the Ford Escape all-wheel drive system is not the hybrid. they have a disconnecting, drive shaft driven
Yep.
all-wheel drive system. Now, eventually, this e-axle might migrate to a hybrid version of the Escape. But right now, if you get a hybrid version of the Escape, it's front drive.
Okay. Well, that's going to do it. We're going to wrap up our discussion. Thank you for tuning in to our discussion about the Ward's 10 best engines and propulsion systems for 2020. We'll do this again next year, so be sure to tune in. Thanks.